Hey everybody, it's your host Harley with Awful Talk. Today we're going to talk about apparently a Somalian man is going on national news calling out his own community because of all the fraud scandals going on surrounding the Somali community, which it turns out we're also going to be talking about. It's not just in Minnesota because we have whistleblowers warning of massive Somali fraud ring. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys go ahead and like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share this with some of your friends. Today, and I've been kind of wondering the answer to this question. How far back does the Somali influence go? I know it's been growing over the few years, at least. And I'm kind of new to this topic myself personally. Let's get into this and let's go to the TV.
Is home to the largest Somali community in America. In over just one generation, they've become a significant political force. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. And I think for many, Representative Ilhan Omar comes to mind. Yeah. For many, but the influence of the Somali community, of Somali leadership, it stretches far before that, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. The story starts kind of in the 1990s, actually, when thousands of Somalis arrived as refugees fleeing a civil war. And then as the population grew, especially in that Cedar Riverside area, they built mosques, community centers, and advocacy groups, basically laying the groundwork for political engagement.
And I'd like to add too, in that area now they have a mosque set up near the Cedar Riverside area where they actually, during the times that it's time for prayer, they have a call for prayer, and they're playing the sound that you would hear in Middle Eastern countries during the time that it's actually time to pray, which I find rather interesting because nowhere else have we really seen that, and for those kinds of immigrants to come into our country and do that's kind of a new thing, and it is sort of in my perspective, and forgive me, I'm not xenophobic, I'm not racist by any means. Matter of fact, I believe God loves all people, therefore so do I. However, that's not aligned with the Christian values that our country had been founded upon, and therefore says a lot to how they're not willing to assimilate to the American and Western way of life. We've seen these things happening, in Texas. They're buying up land and they're building Islamic communities so that possibly they can enact their Sharia law, and that can be enforced in their communities. And actually, a builder in Texas, I believe, was blocked from being able to build in this community because of their stance on only allowing people who profess Islam as their faith to move into the community. So I just wanted to add that commentary in so that we know. We don't have to be, judgmental, have you will, of the people, but let's not be afraid to judge the actions of the people.
First major breakthrough came in 2013 when a Somali won a seat on the Minneapolis City Council. And then fast forward to 2016, Ilhan Omar became the first Somali American elected to a state legislature seat. And then 2 years later, the first Somali American in Congress. So pretty big historic moments there.
A lot of momentum, it seems, too. Yeah. What do experts attribute to this level of influence?
So a couple of main factors that I kind of pinpointed. So high density voting blocks is a big one. Obviously, Minneapolis has a large Somali population, giving them some real power when it comes to local primaries. And then another one is a kind of a young, politically active community. That is a big factor here. Somali Minnesotans have one of the youngest median ages in the state, and youth groups and mosques really help mobilize young voter turnout. So,
and when we get into, the text on the screen, it actually says Somalis arrived in Minnesota with social and cultural resources to help them adapt. They have built extensive social and professional networks that have helped them find housing, employment, and educational opportunities. And I think we'll get more context as we get into the Somali man who, and I believe he's from Maine, calling out the Somali community and how they treated him, as he comes in to assimilate into the American way of life, how the Somali community treated him, when he opted out of, having those sort of resources. And I'll let him touch on that, but let's keep going.
Today, Somali Americans hold seats on the city council, in the Minnesota House, in local party leadership, and obviously, of course, Congress.
All right, Emma, thank you so much.
Thanks.
And for more on this Fact Check Team topic, including links to their sources, scan the QR code or visit the...
Yeah, and that's, these fraud scandals, are taken off, especially in Minnesota. There's actually, let's go to this next thing because a Somali. Nope. Let's go back here. Hopefully it doesn't play. I'm not ready for it. Not ready for it. Not ready for it. So Minnesota's just the tip of the spear. We have a whistleblower who is warning of this massive Somali fraud ring that is now emerging in Ohio. So it's not just Minnesota. We're seeing it across the country, more so than just, Minnesota. Let's go back to the TV.
How the loopholes work.
They're just rubber stamping a lot of these. And then that same individual a week later, that's supposed to be bedridden, is all over social media, whether they're out dancing at a party or something like that. So the symptoms aren't really adding up at the end of the day. The problem today is not the community. It's actually the criminals within the Somalian community that have exploited Ohio's Medicaid program because we have a system right now that's one of the easiest in the Midwest to game. Say I want to take care of my elderly aging parents at some point. I can become a home health provider. And this is where the Somali community has been really clever. They've been able to find loopholes in Ohio law to provide for care for family members, even when they don't need it.
She added that providers who came forward did so at great personal risk, warning they could be stoned to death if exposed. Ohio's Medicaid system is supposed to be monitored to ensure funds are used correctly and programs are properly managed. However, independent assessments and oversight are lacking, allowing the system to be exploited. Cook further revealed that, according to community insiders, 99% of individuals receiving home healthcare Medicaid benefits have been coached and do not actually qualify. Cook drew a direct comparison to Minnesota's scandal. What we're seeing in Minneapolis is just a snippet of what's happening in Ohio. Cook clarified that the fraud is not about race or the Somali community, but about criminals exploiting the system.
100%. And I want to place emphasis on that because I have been seeing comments on our channel where people are, name calling and saying that we at the Thoughtful Talk are racist. And that's not true, hold the criminals accountable. That's all we're saying, right? Hold the criminals accountable. If it so happens to be Somalian people, then it's got to be talked about in that way. If it were Caucasian white American people that were doing it, we would still be having the same conversation. And matter of fact, in Minnesota, there are the elements of that also. You look at Governor Tim Walz, there's no way he didn't know that this wasn't going on or that this was going on. There's no way, you have Keith Ellison now being caught in a audio recording that I believe the House of Representatives were talking about, that it sounded like in that audio recording of him, and you're talking about the Attorney General of Minnesota getting caught on audio, and it appears that they are colluding with fraudsters. I mean, and that's a big problem in big evidence alluding to the fact that they knew about this long before we did.
She emphasized that Ohio's Medicaid waiver was designed to help those in need, but it is being abused. However, she called for stronger oversight and audits in Ohio and other states to protect taxpayers and prevent misuse of funds.
I know that everybody wants to make this a Somali issue or a race issue. It's not. Our waiver system in Ohio was built with compassion. It was built to really help individuals that are struggling and in need, but it's being looted today. I think every state, in addition to Ohio, should be asking for audits of their Medicaid system and their programs, she said, adding, "At the end of the day, Ohio taxpayers are hurting, the American people are hurting, and we don't have enough tax dollars."
As
And I'm just round of applause to her. Round of applause for the exposure of this issue, because at the end of the day, right, if people involved aren't speaking up, because we're going to get more context here in a second. In a second, we're going to hear from a Somali man who's literally calling out the Somalian community. And it's going to add further context to what we're talking about here. You know, the point is that these programs, these government subsidies, were obviously created under the guise that they were to help people in need, not help people who don't need it but want it. You know, we're talking about possibly, right? Lazy people not wanting to do the work, who sign up for things and get approved because it's just so easy. You know, and what are they doing to encourage their community to move past that? Because the solution for poverty shouldn't be stay poor, right? The solution for poverty could be, here's a program to help you get on your feet. Now go figure it out, and whatever resources we have will give you to help, you know, find employment, to, you know what I mean, get better in your life versus staying embedded in the system.
the Ohio scandal unfolds, it will be interesting to see how the Trump administration responds. In the meantime, here's what Trump has said about Somalians and Minnesota.
Biden and the radical left Democrats turned Pennsylvania into a dumping ground for hundreds of thousands of migrants from the most dysfunctional places on earth, like Somalia, and gave them billions and billions of your taxpayer dollar. But we didn't really give it. It was stolen. And those people should go to jail. We also announced a permanent pause on third world migration, including from hellholes like Afghanistan, Haiti, Somalia, and many other countries. I didn't say shithole, you did.
Hey, and to all the liberals, the leftists that are going to be tuning in, okay, to you, I just want you to know, like, we care about you too. We want what's best for America. America should come first, and we shouldn't have to walk on eggshells just simply because your feelings get hurt. See, our rights don't end where your feelings begin. So if you feel a little sensitive about what we're talking about here, go ahead and subscribe, because I'd love for you to leave a comment.
Remember I said that to the senators they came in, the Democrats. They wanted to be bipartisan. So they came in and they said, this is totally off the record. Nothing mentioned here. We want to be honest because our country was going to hell. And we had a meeting. And I say, why is it we only take people from shithole countries, right? Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime. The only thing they're good at is going after ships.
It's funny that he says that, because he's alluding to the fact that they're pirates, right? That and then we have this problem here, you know, in the United States, where the Somali fraud problem is just running rampant, and it's not, like I said before, it's not just Minnesota, it's all over the country. We're seeing it everywhere. You know, and if you're somebody in here or if you're somebody that's watching that can't stand what I'm saying right now, I want you to understand one thing.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
Because we are standing for truth and we are standing for freedom, but we're not going to allow free people, right, to come into our country and to take advantage of the system and, you know, become millionaires at the expense of committing crime. That just would not be okay. Now, what I want to get into now is the Somali refugee calls out his own community, okay? Adding another layer of context to what we're talking about here. Because what I want you to really listen to, okay, is I want you to hear how he describes he was being treated, okay, by his own people when he first came here. Let's go back to the TV.
But leaders in Minnesota were unable to grasp the idea of immigrant poverty. They were more afraid of being called racist if they did their jobs to try and deal with potential welfare fraud within the Somali community. Our next guest says there's more to the fraud story, and he's a Somali-American refugee and naturalized U.S. citizen who lives in Maine. He recently told the Maine Wire Steve Robinson that Somali cultural issues are a part of the problem with what's going on in Minnesota. And Abdi Iftin joins us now. Abdi, thank you for being with us here today. What is more to the story? What are the deeper issues?
First of all, thanks for having me. There are much deeper issues. I've moved into the U.S. And in Maine about 11 years ago, and basically the first question that members of my community asked me which tribe, you know, I belong to, and when I mentioned, so I fell into that category. So there's a deeper tribal rivalry going on in the community, much larger than anybody can actually imagine. And then interestingly enough, even though I spoke very good English, one of the things that I was told to do is go find a discounted housing Section 8, which I didn't know what actually it was, and sign up for all the other community benefits within the government or the state. And my response was, I'm actually here to work. And
see, and that's what I wanted you to catch, is they were trying to influence him to, based on what he's saying, not what I'm saying, based on what he's saying, they're trying to influence him to take part in these government subsidies. And, you know, as you can start to hear, his response is, what do you mean? I'm here to work. You know, but that is a reflection of, you know, how they're influencing people to get on these things and, you know, perhaps be lazy. Maybe I'm wrong. If you think I'm wrong, this is what I want you to do, right? First, I want you to hit like on the video. Hey, you can even dislike it if you want. Then I want you to subscribe to the channel, okay? So you can hate on me as much as you want, okay? I give you full-on permission to call me whatever name you like in the book. You have full-on permission to go into the comments section, right? This is the only time you're allowed to do it. In the comments section and say whatever you want, okay? Disagree with me, right? Let's have a healthy debate. Let's do that. Even if you're a leftist and you believe that, you know what I mean, your hate speech is good enough to try to sway me into becoming, you know, a Democrat, use it, right? I promise I won't return it. But get in the comments and tell me how you feel. I would really love to hear about it.
Build, you know, basic and become part of the American fabric, which is
Abdi, I'm
pretty much what I've been
incredibly
working on
fascinated
for a
by
while.
what you're having to say, so much so that I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to clarify. So when you felt that pressure and you were told to go join, you know, public welfare programs once you moved here, where was that pressure coming from? Are you saying it's like cultural, like neighborhood, like neighbors telling you this is what you should do? How were you pushed in that direction?
Well, it was coming from the community that actually thought that was just a way of life, right? I you know, instead of being asked about what kind of school I want to go to, what subjects I would love to study, and those interesting conversations weren't there at all. And my response was, you know, can we do better things? Can we as a community actually integrate? And let's listen to that word, interestingly, because that had got me a huge backlash. This is many, many years ago that many people thought, no, let's not talk about integration. And I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for a pushback against this idea of sort of melting into America, becoming part of America. And let's just be very clear that I haven't arrived here as a young man. I mean, I came here at age 29, so I was well informed about my culture and my community growing up in the civil war in Somalia.
Incredibly, you're telling me you not only were discouraged from integrating into America, but you were also encouraged to stick to your tribal allegiances from back in Somalia, and those tribal allegiances and divisions remain here in America. That stat I showed, I'm curious, Abdi, about the percentage of the Somali population on some form of welfare, 80%, and stays that way over a 10-year period. Does that surprise you?
Did you hear the number? 80% of Somali refugees in our country, or immigrants in general, are on some sort of welfare. You know, that's huge. And the other piece he's talking about is, and this is what I heard from it, and again, if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, but it sounded like he said the same problems we have back home in Somalia, right? You know, the division and all that kind of stuff is going on within the Somali community here, right? And they don't, it sounds to me, based on what he's saying, again, this is just one person, so objectively, I would like to think that, you know, maybe it's partially enough to really sway it, but they don't want to integrate into American way of life. They want to stay what they were back in Somalia, you know, and I think one of the reasons why we're so attractive as a country is because we have these programs. Then you have people like, you know, former President Joe Biden, who, you know, willfully and unlawfully opened up the borders to, you know, people like this to come into our country. And, you know, we're so focused on, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion as an administration under Biden that we just want to be inclusive to everybody, and we just want to guard everybody's feelings, and we just everybody to have a safe home, and everybody, you know, and here we are. Now here we are. Let's continue.
In some ways, it does not. You know, let me give you one example here. When I was in Somalia, a huge part of the population in Somalia, we're talking about 20 million people in Somalia, a huge number of that depended on $100 that family members in the U.S. sent back home. So there was not a lot of work to rebuild the country or get to work, or, you know, just basically building things. So this whole idea of receiving things the easy way has unfortunately actually evolved and became part of our way of life for 30 years. And I really don't want to put this on someone. So I have like-minded friends within my community, but we're minority. We're actually shut down every time we try to speak out.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. I'd love to speak to you much more in depth, Abdi. I hope we can stay in touch. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Hey, and that's what I'm saying, right? We have a way bigger issue than people realize. I think. I'm pretty sure that we have a way bigger problem on our hands. You know, I got another video I was going to play, but I'm not going to play it. The Council on American Islamic Relations dropped a video today. They were talking on CNN about, the Minnesota director, he discusses the ICE targeting of the Somali community. And I feel like people don't realize the U.S. Supreme Court back in September ruled that, and I've seen a lot of comments about this in the comment section, you know, in the past few days on our channel, is, you know, racial profiling, right? They're racial profiling people, and American citizens are getting caught up in the mix. Well, let me inform you. The U.S. Supreme Court Justice actually ruled back in September, which was a Los Angeles case, that racial profiling in itself, period, is unconstitutional, right? We all know that. If anybody that knows the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment knows that profiling somebody based on race is in fact unconstitutional. However, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that race, in conjunction with other factors, is in fact enough for detainment and questioning. The thing about it is, and I used this analogy in the comments before, and maybe I did on past videos, but I'm going to say it again. If a house is continuously burglarized, right, in a community, all right, say it's my residential community, this house keeps getting burglarized, okay, they haven't caught the people that keep doing it, right? There's security cameras, stuff like that, but they still can't, catch the people, right? And say, I just so happen to, around those times, be standing, right, near and around that property, no matter what, if I'm white, black, Asian, doesn't matter, I'm probably going to get questioned, right? So there's reasonable articulable suspicion, right, that for them to question me. And if I did get found that, because they have to state an articulable fact, right, in a report as evidence for probable cause, and that would be, right, that I was in and around the area. Now, here's the thing, okay? They could say, well, we knew that white people in the area were burglarizing houses, okay? And it's the same thing, right? So what I get out of it is this, right? If somebody, right, say for an example, a Somali immigrant, Mexican immigrant, whatever, right? Somebody that doesn't look like me, okay? It just so happens to be, right, in a place in which, like, say for an example, they're walking out of their employment, right, on their lunch break, okay? And they that company is known for, right, employing people that aren't legal to work in this country. That's enough. That's enough. And why wouldn't they utilize race as a means to, accomplish that? It's easy. See, the thing about humans is they're like water, right? It's going to take its natural, most easiest course to get to its planned destination. There's other people in this country that aren't black, that aren't Asian, that aren't Hispanic or Latin, that are also getting detained. The problem is though the media is not covering it in the same way because the numbers are lower, right? And again, since humans are more like water when they're traveling to meet a destination or goal, right? They're going to choose the most easiest thing, So this is what I want you to do, okay? I want you to stop a second, okay? I want you to hit the like button. And if you don't like the content, hit the dislike. I could care less, okay? But I also want you to subscribe to the channel, okay? Get in the comments and tell me how you feel about these situations, this whole ordeal that's going on in our country. I want to hear what the common American like myself is saying, right? Or believing within their heart. Thank you so much for tuning in. And that's all I got for you today. Have a blessed day.